Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how the American dream is alive and well. It's only out here in Mexico, that's right. It's not just out here in Mexico, but it's been exported, basically all around the world in many, many places. And out here is no different. Again, we're as closest to the USA as possible. So of course, the American dream is alive and well out here. In fact, you've heard me talk about this many times over in many episodes throughout the years, out here, while I've been, filming my life, the last 7+ years as I've been living out here, living the dream. That's right. In fact, we're going to get right on the bike today. As you guys can see, we got the bike out here ready to go. And we're actually standing behind La Escuela de Bellas Artes, right here in Merida, Yucatan. The famous Parque La Plancha is right behind this amazing, gorgeous building. This is where Christian studied art, and she taught, art as a teacher. And there's a bunch of kids running around because, well, it's already late August and everybody's back in school. We got everybody back on the road, and it's time for us to also get back on the road. So in today's episode, we're actually going to be going all the way down to Kanasin, and we're going to be talking about, as we make our way out there, as to how the American dream is alive and well, just, outside of the USA's borders. So without further ado, let's hop on the bike and let's get rolling. All right, guys. So let's start making our way out to the Kanasin area. And so why are we going out there today? Well, it's because by popular demand, a lot of you guys have been asking me, to go out there and make a video of the area. And so right now I'm on my way out there to make a future video for you guys. But in the meantime, I figured, why not make a video while I make a future video, or while I'm on my way to go make that future video for you guys. Because as you guys already know, I do a lot of videos on my channel, a lot of content. And so, one of the, more favorite videos that you guys enjoy so much are the home tours. And these home tours, are all over the city. In fact, you probably already saw a recent one where we were in the north of the city. Again, we try to cover as many parts of the city as possible, not just here on my bike and on the channel, but also like when we're doing the home tours, like to show you guys everywhere, there is available to live out here. A lot of awesome places to call home. And so with that said, we're actually going to be going out there today. But in the meantime, I figured, why not talk about the Mexican dream? Because that's really what it is. It's the Mexican dream that is now overtaking the American dream. It seems more and more people these days, want to move out here to Mexico. It's not just Americans and Canadians. It's not just those people from that part of America, but it's basically a lot of people from all over the Americas and all over the world. It's just, straight up being honest with you guys. How we like to do out here. So, with that said, that's what we're going to be talking about today. In today's video, we're going to be talking about, why I love it out here so much, why so many people are looking forward to moving out here and making this their new home. And so, that's the topic of today's video while we are making our way towards Kanasin, in which I plan to do a little bit of a tour of the area over there. But anyways, enough of what we're going to be doing in the future. Let's talk about now. Let's talk about the current. I got to get one of those little roofs. What do you guys think? For my bike, to help with the heat. Right now it's very hot and humid out here. I actually had to wait to get out of the house like around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, simply because it was raining this morning. And so now it's really hot and really humid. But hey, it is what it is. You know how we do out here. No pain, no gains. All right. So anyways, so what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be making our way towards 67th, which is only a few more blocks down ahead of us. And then we're going to be taking 67 all the way down till we get to Kanasin. And in the meantime, we're just going to be talking about, again, not only why I love it out here so much, but why so many people love it out here. Again, I've talked about this, many times over. And I have a million reasons as to why I love it out here so much. And I love sharing it with you guys. You know, again, it's the main reason. Let's talk about my most favorite reason, you know, for me living out here and calling this place home. And it's basically freedom. Again, the freedom that one gets by living out here. And again, that definition of freedom means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Sometimes it's just simply, you know, economic freedom. You know, the fact that it buys you, you know, a lot of economic freedom. All right, so we're at 67th, and we're gonna be making our way down all the way that way. Now, again, just for a little context, over here is El Centro. You know, we're not too far away from El Centro, so, you know, we're just like 2 blocks away. We're actually in El Centro right now, but we're like on the outskirts of El Centro. And look at this. We got some gentrification, AKA some bike lanes. So hopefully this will help us, you know, traverse, you know, through all this traffic till we get to our destination out there. So, you know, the freedom, it's just so many freedoms. You know, it's not just a freedom, it's not just a basic, simple freedom of the economics, but like, for example, look at these guys just parked out here in the bike lane. Sure, it's a pain in the butt, you know, for someone like me, but they have the freedom to be there. And I guess this guy dropped some stuff, poor guy. All right, hold on, let's see if we can get through here. All right. Hold on, one of these. But yeah, the freedom isn't just like the economic freedom. I know a lot of you guys, you know, in the audience sometimes like to say, oh, the reason a lot of people move out here to Mexico is just simply because of the economic freedom, you know, AKA things are less expensive, things are more affordable, things are more budget friendly. And yes, you know, that is a major contributor to why a lot of people, you know, move out here. That's just the truth. All right, we're gonna be sticking to the bike lanes here. Let's see how far they go. All right, maybe they can take us all the way down to our destination here. But anyway, so the reality is that, you know, for a lot of people, it basically, a lot of it revolves around economics. Because when you are spending the majority of your life, the majority of your days, the majority of your existence, you know, basically out there just trying to make enough money to basically, you know, pay your bills and get something to eat and have no life. You know, just the whole idea, the whole thought of moving to Mexico is a dream. It's part of that American dream. It's part of that the Mexican dream, simply because, well, you know, once you're out here, well, guess what? You know, you're able to live a more full life. Again, you know, you guys have been following me, my story from the beginning. Again, I've been out here 7+ years, and I came out here with not much left to my name. And again, for context, for the new viewers out there, you know, I came out here with just 1,500 left to my name, and I was able to basically dig myself out of the gutter. All right, and not just that, but, you know, helps out so many people in the process, not just myself. And, you know, been able to live an amazing and full life. You know, one that, you know, I'm very, very happy to have and very proud of. And, you know, a lot of it, you know, just stems from the fact that out here, you know, I just have so much more economic freedom where I don't have to make as much money to just have a roof over my head, you know, to have, you know, good food on my dinner table, or my lunch plate, or whatever, and so on and so forth. You know, the reality is that, you know, I've told you many times, you know, just living out here. All right, hopefully I don't bump into somebody there. All right, we got the kiddos getting out of off the bus. But yeah, you know, there's just so much freedom that comes from just having economic sovereignty. Sovereignty? You know what I mean?
Bruh.
So, you know, when you're living in an area, when you live in a country in which you don't need that much money to just make your ends meet. Hey, hey, no te preocupes. You know, again, another reason why I love it out here so much. Everyone's so nice, so friendly. You know, again, everyone just understands each other. You know, I'm not getting mad at that guy for parking his bike in the middle of the lane. I'm not getting mad at, other individuals for parking their trucks or their cars in the bike lane. It's just, it is what it is. You just make your way around it and you go on with your day. You know, you don't let something like that ruin your day. You don't let something like that ruin, your life. You don't let all these extracurriculars basically dictate your mood on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes things can be annoying. Sometimes it can be a pain in the butt. But for the most part, it's doable. It's something you can change. Okay, so we got to get on 69. So that's 69 right there. All right, so we're gonna go and get on this side here because we got to cross the street over there. All right. You know what? Let's just go for it right now. I was just trying to be a little bit more prudent. Okay, so now we're gonna take 69 all the way to our destination. We're just crossing the city here. All right. And anyway, so yeah, like at the end of the day, it's like, why do I love living out here? It's because, again, everyone is so much more cordial. Everyone is in it together. Again, just going back to like that American dream, Mexican dream, just the dream, living that dream. Out here, it's more doable. It's a lot easier to get things done on a day-to-day basis, just simply because, again, everyone is just more understanding of everyone else. Of course, like I said, there are moments when your neighbor might annoy you. Some random guy, might be a jerk. Some people just don't understand, don't care. There's always going to be all kinds of things that happen. Life happens. But for the most part, man, it is just so much better. So, like, for example, look, that bus up ahead, this is like, these are the old buses. You guys can see them. There's one, one from crossing each other. They're right there next to each other. And there's a new bus. And so, like, again, you guys have seen the new buses in a lot of my videos. But recently, you're seeing a lot of the older buses. And why are there more older buses on the streets these days as opposed to the new bus? Well, it's because the new bus, it's coming with a lot more, it's, in some cases a little less freedom because, you got to have a digital card and you got to have like a little bit of a digital imprint in order to ride those buses. We talked about that earlier, meaning that you got to go and you got to get a special card, just to ride the bus. You got to fill out that card, with digital pesos, whatever, what I mean? And for a lot of Mexicans, that's just not feasible. And so the old buses just came online because the old buses are offering people, the same ride, the same everything, basically for a more affordable price. And they can pay in cash, no questions asked. And they're all privately owned, as opposed to like those blue buses that are not necessarily privately owned. I mean, they're owned by a company. They're owned by the ADO company. The one that takes, those big fancy buses that take you all across the country. But the reality is that, again, there's just so much more economic freedom out here as opposed to back home, where, back home, all of a sudden they implement, the brand new buses with the brand new technology and the brand new everything. And they basically, by law, eliminate, a lot of the older buses and older technology, and then it forces everybody to get on that grid or on that government whatever that many people might not want to get on board. But out here in Mexico, it's everybody has the option to do basically whatever they want, and so that that's one of the main reasons why I love it out here. And again, it's not just the fact that you can get by just making a few bucks. All right, I'm just gonna get on the. Look at all these buses here. A lot of traffic. Again, that's why I love my bike. My bike is all terrain here. All right, we're just gonna get behind this person here. We're gonna ride with them. But yeah, out here, like I was saying, with the whole economic freedom thing, out here, it doesn't matter what your situation is, but you can make that money that you make, whether you're making dollars or euros or pesos, stretch a lot further. Again, I talk to you guys all the time. I got tons of Mexican friends and family that have all kinds of different, all kinds of different, salaries, monthly salaries here. And so, some people make what I make. Man, it's extra loud today. Jeez. This is why I always take the side streets. But anyways, as I was saying, so look, these people are just parked on the side of the road here. But yeah, anyways, the economic freedom that a lot of people have, and they don't have to worry so much about making that much more money. Because, for example, for the typical Mexican, they don't have to make that much money, to survive out here. And that includes you, obviously. If you're going to be living out here, you don't got to make that much money. But why is it that you don't got to make that much money? It's because there's just so many more resources available to just the common man out here that don't require you, to basically sacrifice so much of your time working like a slave, just to afford the bare necessities. One thing that I like to talk about a lot is healthcare. Healthcare out here is extremely affordable. Whether it's I got to go see a dentist, or I got to go see, I got to go get some new glasses, or I got to just go see a doctor, or I got to go to the pharmacy, or again, many times I can afford to pay for a private doctor. I've talked to you guys before. At the most affordable rate, I can see a doctor right away. For like $3 US, give or take. I can go see an actual doctor, for a little bit more than that. Perhaps $25 US, and I can see a specialist, for a little bit, between $25 to $50 US. For a lot of you guys out there in the audience, that's barely enough to cover the copay. Let alone all the other charges and expenses that you're going to get. Out here, I had a situation not that long ago, a few months ago, where I actually got bit by a cat that might have or might not have had rabies. And, I really could not have afforded, to go to that special doctor. I really could not have afforded, to go and take care of that, through the private means, because it was just going to be too expensive to get all those rabies shots and the treatment and all this other stuff. So, my Mexican friends basically, in fact, Gizmo's vet, my dog's vet, basically suggested for me to go down to El Centro, to the public hospital, and basically get treatment there. All right, it's gonna get a little dicey here. All right, we're gonna go around here. And so I was able to get, my rabies shot, my treatment, my medicine, my everything for zero. The cost of $0. That's pretty amazing, right? What can you get in the USA for $0? Besides, a bunch of stress and heartburn and heartache, right? Other than that, everything costs money, all right? And so, out here, the fact that you can get things like medicine, you get to, see a doctor, get treatment, get whatever for a very affordable cost. That basically relieves a lot of stress, for the common man. And so, like, for example, when I was at the free public hospital, one of the things that I realized, one of the things that I noticed was the fact that how many mothers, how many families were there basically how many families, how many mothers, how many people were there, basically extremely low income, that were able to get medical treatment, without any money. Again, a lot of people can. That's why a lot of Mexicans can have like many kids and not really worry about all these medical expenses or birthing, right? Birth expenses, child expenses. Children can get expensive, and why can so many people have so many kids no matter how poor they are? Well, because again, the free healthcare. Now, look, I'm not saying the free healthcare is 1,000% amazing and perfect. It has its plus and minuses, but for a lot of people and for a lot of situations, it's a lifesaver. It's something that many people they just cannot live without. It's just the true reality of it, and so that takes a lot of burden off of the shoulders of a lot of people, and they're able to afford healthcare. And that's why you see a lot of families out here that basically they can live with just one salary, even if that one salary is only, just like around $500, $800 a month. Again, I'm living out here on around $1,500 a month, and for some of you guys out there in the audience, you're probably looking at me like I'm poor. But for a lot of Mexicans, I'm like middle class, give or take. All right? And so, it's a lot of things like that basically, allow so many people out here to, to survive, on just very little. So imagine if like both parents sacrifice themselves, they both get a job, they can basically put their kids in private school, they can pay off their mortgage or buy a house and own the house, by the time they're my age, which is like 44 years old, and so on and so on and so forth. All right, we're about to enter Kanasin, all right? We're about to enter Kanasin over here, so, we're gonna be doing a little, ride around this area, all right, before we go deeper into Kanasin, but we'll go deeper into Kanasin later on. All right, seems like there was some sort of accident or something here. All right, we're gonna cross over here. All right, so look, these right here are, all right, can I get around? All right, well, let's just go through here. So it seems like this truck is, is having some issues. And so they got the tow truck here. Oh. And they're doing their thing. All right, let's go through here. All right, so basically we're entering Kanasin. All right. Again, you see over there? All right, so what we're gonna do over here is that we're gonna go around here, all right, just on the outskirts of the city, of the area of Kanasin for a quick minute, all right, so we can kind of finish this video here. Wrap this up. I know sometimes my videos are a little bit all over the place, and the reason for that is basically because, hey, I just want to get on the bike. I want to show you the areas. I want to show you what's around here. Sometimes, what I'm talking about isn't necessarily the most important thing. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But yeah, the thing is like there's so much freedom here. Freedom, from not getting harassed and bothered by the police on a constant basis, the freedom, to just, live the life that you want to live, whatever that life is. You can just be a simple, worker like this guy. See, look, this guy right here, he works off that tricycle there, and basically he's his own boss. He doesn't work for anybody, and he basically dictates his hours, his clients, and everything that his life, that guy, he gets to dictate, his career path, all right, for lack of a better description, all right. And so, again, the freedom is, it comes in many shapes and forms. I go into more detail in other videos, but again, for me, the freedom that I'm not getting constantly harassed, by, let's say, police officers or authority figures. The fact that I don't need to make that much money in order to live a very nice and comfortable life. the fact that I get to pick and choose what I really want to do with my life. Okay? As opposed to where a lot of people, and by the way, Kanasin is very nice, all right? So again, I'm glad that, I got to come out here today, that the weather cleared up, and I'm able to bring you guys out here so you guys can see a little bit of what this amazing area looks like. Because again, this area is always, by a lot of people, it's considered to be one of the most dangerous parts of Merida. But every time I'm out here, it's like, where's the danger? I see no danger whatsoever. All right, let's go into one of the neighborhoods here and make our way back here while we wrap this up. But this video, again, is just to get you guys, from point A to point B. Again, as we said, I want to give you guys a little tour of Kanasin. So, you're getting a little bit of a mini tour of Kanasin, so you guys can, what is it? Like, look forward to a future episode where I'm going to show you guys a little bit more in depth of the area. But look, the freedom, okay? Like I say over and over again, the freedom to live your life, the freedom, to not get harassed, by, all kinds of negative Nancys out there, whether it's a Karen, basically, harassing you to behave a certain way, or, again, having, whether you can have your dog out with a leash or no leash, where you can park your car, the economic freedom of being able to do whatever you want, build the house that you want. You can have, a makeshift home, basically almost a shack, right next to a mansion, right next to a modest home, right next, again, all that stuff. Again, there are neighborhoods where, things are a little bit more, how do I say, it's like even, where all the homes are, basically high-end homes or more poor homes. But at the end of the day, most people, they just end up getting a piece of property out here, one shape, form, or another, and then throughout the years, they just build it up, and eventually, why would they ever want to leave when, they don't, their property taxes are basically $25, give or take. They don't have a mortgage. They definitely, don't need to be paying any kind of rent or any kind of extra bills, so they can live very modestly. They can put their kids through school, again, either free public school or they can pay for a private school. Many kinds of private schools are available to all kinds of people. Again, even Christian, she was born, poor, bottom of the barrel, you know what I mean? And she went to private school. I grew up poor, but yet I grew up a lot richer, in the USA than she did out here. And yet, my parents were never able to afford to put me in a private school. Out in the USA, we're always scared, of, authority figures, the police, getting a ticket, getting a fine, getting in trouble, getting in whatever, all kinds of things like that. And, out here it's not that big of a deal. Back home in the USA, people are constantly always afraid, are constantly worried about making enough money, not losing their job, careful what they say, what they can't say. And it's just so many things that to me, that's no life, I'm not going to lie to you, that's not really living. That's not something that I would consider, a good life. Again, I lived out in the USA and I've been living out here, and you can't compare one without the, one to the other. Out here, the whole idea of real freedom is alive and well. Again, a lot of it really does stem from economic freedom. But when you realize, how many resources, the typical Mexican has, out here, compared to back home, and the fact that they can basically do whatever they want, and again, paying the consequences, to those actions, as opposed to having a government entity, basically have them pay for their actions or pay for their whatever. It's just so much better, the fact that, people out here police themselves, people out here are very nice and welcoming. And part of the reason everybody's so nice in Mexico, in my opinion, is because you have to get along. It's not like you can just call the cops or call some sort of, entity out there, to come and get things done for you. Or basically, you can tattletale, or whatever it is. Out here you gotta figure it out on your own. And if all of a sudden, you're a jerk to your neighbors, you're just a jerk, well, you're gonna pay the consequences for those actions, You don't have any kind of police protecting you or any kind of, entity, protecting your horrible actions. In fact, it's the other way around. In fact, you all of a sudden, do something that you're not supposed to be doing, and then you yourself, call the cops, trying to be a smartass, and then before you know it, the cop is the one that's telling you, hey, of course you got your ass kicked, you know what I mean? Of course you got in, this kind of trouble. Of course these things happen. You shouldn't have done that. Don't you know, how to be a human, a normal human out here? So, anyways, I could go on, and I do go on and on many times. But, in today's episode, oh, look at this. We got random little, look at that, Kanasin. So again, expect this in a future video. We're gonna make our way all the way to the end there. We're gonna go to that Chedraui parking lot, and we're gonna go and see if we can wrap this bad boy up. But yeah, to me out here, it's just for some people, the freedom and the reasons that I'm constantly mentioning as to why I love it out here so much is not something that it attracts a lot of people. But for other people, it's like a dream come true, being able to live so freely, being able to live the way that people live out here. It's almost like, for a lot of people out there, you're being told that, no one lives like this anymore. And if they do, they're in a third world country. And as you've seen from many of my videos, that couldn't be any further from the truth. You know what I mean? Out here, there's a mix. There's a mix of, first world, third world, everything and anything in between. In order for people to, let's say, if you want to get to the north of the city, which is nice and fancy and has all the bells and whistles and all that, all you got to do is just get on that highway that you're just looking at right there and make your way to, all right, to the north of the city, all right? All right, so what we're going to do here is, we're going to just see if we can wrap things up over here. Oh, look, that's a bike lane over there. You know what? Let me, hold on a second. I got some traffic behind me here. All right, hold on. You know what? Let's just park the bike here like a true Mexican. And wrap this bad boy up. All right, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video, this short video. But I know a lot of you guys are always asking me to make shorter videos, not always make the long videos. So here we are, short video for your, viewing pleasure, where we just basically drove from its central all the way down here to Kanasin. So you can see how close it actually is. And, we're just talking some gibberish, as to, what I love about living out here so much. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap this bad boy up because, well, I got another video to make. And we're going to give you guys a tour, of Kanasin. Again, everyone here is so amazing, so beautiful, so nice, just awesome. I just freaking love it. It's I'm without words. I don't even know what else to say. I know what else to say. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. Thank you so much for joining me on my, gibberish tour, all right, as we made our way out here to Kanasin. So now, without further ado, we got to film another episode, which you will be seeing in the future as I tour Kanasin. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.